one of the things we're seeing, which I totally agree with in this article, is clients are moving towards that OpEx spending. We give that CIO, we give that IT director back a ton of time around the idea that they're not coordinating multiple vendors. They're not coordinating, hey, where's the cabling person? Hey, where's the install team? Delivering a quick win is taking that complexity, and you don't get rid of the complexity. We still got to help execute on it, but who do you want on your team to help simplify that? I think more and more organizations are moving towards, hey, someone come in here and help me execute.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the Incident Report presented by Quest Technology Management. I'm Paul Burke, Director of Technology Communications. Every week, I'm joined by VP of Sales and Partnerships, Adam Burke. The Incident Report brings you conversations with thought leaders, business innovators, and channel mavericks to help you stay productive and agile in a changing technology landscape. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Incident Report. This is episode 61. I am half your host. My name is Paul Burke. I'm glad you're here. The other half, Adam Burke, across from me. Adam, how are you doing?
Good, Paul. Happy to be here. Coming back after the 4th of July holiday. Hope everyone had a great 4th of July, celebrating the best country in the history of the world, if I do say so myself. So yeah, happy 4th, happy late 4th, and yeah, good to be here.
Yes, happy belated 4th of July. It was a great 4th. I live in a neighborhood where there's a lot of fireworks, which is fun, but not for my cats, who I had to drug last night with supplied medication of gabapentin for anxiety, had to sneak it in their tuna fish and help them relax during all the fireworks.
You just gotta slip in some Benadryl. Just pour a little Benadryl in their milk and they'll be fine.
And that's Animal Corner. Thanks for joining us today at the Incident Report, where we give tips on how to raise animals.
That probably kills the cat. So yeah, probably don't do that.
Don't do that.
Do not do that. Yeah.
Don't do that.
I was in the mountains for the 4th of July. Just not a lot of fireworks up here. Still high fire risk area where I'm at. So not a lot of explosions, but a lot of pool time, a lot of good sun. It was nice. Good weekend.
So what do we do here? That's a great question. We talk about the channel. We share the tech information that you need to know to become a better partner. Adam has a lot of experience. I have a lot of curiosity. And every week I ask questions and he educates me and we have a good time. And we're glad you're here.
Paul runs a lot of digital marketing at a company that we both work for called Quest Technology Management. I've been here about 13 years helping to grow and build out our channel operations and those teams. So we work with a lot of great partners. We'd love to have guests on. So please like, share, comment. And if you got anybody that you think would be great on this show, or if you think Paul or myself would be good to visit any other show, love the cross-pollination, love to have guests on. So yeah, like the show, check it out, or refer a friend, and appreciate everyone's support.
Thank you very much for your support. First article that we're jumping into today, Channel Insider. The APAC channel needs to prepare for smaller deals. Adam, you highlighted this. You thought it was interesting and important to talk about. Data from the Asia and Pacific APAC channel suggest that weaknesses in the U.S. market are starting to have global ramifications. But it seems like, according to this article, there's still going to be growth, just not as much growth, and also depending on what region we're talking about.
Yeah, and it also depends on how people define managed services, right? So in the article here, it talks a little bit about Gartner and banks and how they're addressing assets. And something that I thought was interesting was that banks are disentangling from tangible assets and capital expenditures and favoring operating expenditures and that type of spending instead, which in the MSP world, if you're an MSP who delivers actual services and actual like management around platforms and supporting end users, that's great news. We've been seeing a large growth in our MSP practice around people trying to deliver complex solutions, and we've been able to put wrappers around that. What happens sometimes, and we've seen this in the market, is organizations that have capitalized like licensing renewals and annual contract values of subscription type services that don't really have anything to do with management. And let me break that down a little bit. There's a game that people play on the balance sheet where they say, Paul, you and I are recording this over a Zoom instance right now. We do a lot with Zoom, we do a lot with WebEx, we do a lot with Cisco, we do a lot with different kinds of organizations. And some of these OEMs have created licensing contracts that are annual and multiple year contracts. Okta, for example, or Duo, or name the software as a service vendor out there. They sell contracts to licensing, and some organizations try to report that revenue as, I'm doing air quotes right now, managed services, which is basically the idea of, I'm going to sell a contract, and because it has a duration on it, it has a annual license value or a multiple year value to it, they classify that on their balance sheet as monthly reoccurring revenue, or it's a committed revenue stream that they have for the year or for multiple years.
Hmm.
They're not really doing anything. They're not really helping the end user. They're not really helping support the client. They're not really providing a managed service, but the revenue is collected in a way that looks like monthly reoccurring charges that Wall Street loves, private equity loves, venture capital loves. So it was kind of a game that people used. They basically took a previously CapEx type of an arrangement and kind of financially engineered it in a way to look better on a balance sheet, to get a higher multiple value for their firm. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense. And is it primarily just to make Wall Street happy?
Well, it's kind of a game of hot potato. One person buys a company and they figure out a way to make it more valuable, whether it's financial engineering or actually selling more stuff and helping more people. A lot of people lean towards the financial engineering. That's one way to do it. And then you sell it to the next guy and the next person and the next person. And it kind of keeps going up until it either explodes and everyone finds out it's a zombie company that's tied up with a ton of debt and not really going to make it anywhere,
Mm-hmm.
or they sell it off to someone else, or they put it in a SPAC, or they take it public. It's kind of a game of hot potato. And what happened recently is interest rates got really, really expensive. So the cost of money that was fueling all of this kind of funny math on balance sheets, in order to kind of sell the musical chairs, sell it, the asset to the next guy up the chain,
Mhm.
that kind of hit a pause button. So this note here, it was interesting. I grew my attention because it's like, why would the channel need to be prepared for smaller deals? We're seeing more and more complex, larger deals come through quite at a higher frequency, especially from our channel community. So it caught my attention. And I think the reason it caught my attention is because a lot of people in the channel, a lot of organizations in the channel, were kind of playing that game of, I'm going to take a capitalized expense and create it into a managed, again, air quotes, a managed service, and report it as reoccurring revenue.
Mm-hmm.
Well, interest rates are getting tighter. People are getting a little bit tighter with their pocketbooks, and they're needing to get more with less. For our type of company, that's great because we kind of take a building block approach and put things together. But for what I think this article is referencing is firms that were selling large licensing contracts for small margin and then carving it up into monthly reoccurring charges to say they had reoccurring revenue.
Mm-hmm.
Those deals aren't happening anymore. The private equity firms, the strategic buyers, there's still deals going on, but there aren't as many that are paying up for that type of revenue.
Mm-hmm.
And so everyone's kind of trying to figure out, okay, now what do we do?
So when it says MSPs that will benefit from this challenging environment will be the ones that offer quick wins for the clients, what do you see as quick wins for the clients?
So helping to achieve something, get a solution deployed in a simple way, right? So helping organizations. So if a client has a complex project, we just did one for an insurance group. They had 50 offices, and they needed help deploying a wireless solution and some access control for their environment. They needed to have people badge in and badge out. Well, wireless and badging could be two separate hardware vendors that you have to coordinate with. Could be two separate manufacturers that you have to coordinate with. You have to cable those 20 different sites. You have to coordinate different cabling vendors to come out and do that. And then the day two, you got to find someone, or you have to hire someone to manage this infrastructure that you're deploying day two. So where I think you can help clients with a quick win is take away that complexity of a simple idea. Like, hey, it's a simple idea. I want to deploy wireless at my 20 locations, and I want to deploy a new badging system with some cameras at these same locations to help secure my assets and my people.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very, very simple thought. It's a complex delivery because you have multiple vendors, multiple manufacturers, multiple partners. It's a large project. So what organizations like us, like Quest, can do as an MSP can help bundle those things together and deliver a kind of a uniformed model where we coordinate all the cabling and infrastructure deployment. We handle all the hardware procurement. We handle all the day two support. And then one of the things we're seeing, which I totally agree with in this article, is their clients are moving towards that OpEx spending. We create a wrapper around all of those items and deliver a predictable cost per month to that organization. We give that CIO, we give that IT director back a ton of time around the idea that they're not coordinating multiple vendors. They're not coordinating, hey, where's the cabling person? Hey, where's the install team? Where's their drop shipping product, right? It's a lot of times you don't think about this, but you got 20 to 50 different locations around the United States and you're drop shipping expensive hardware. Where does that all go? Does it go to each location? Do you drop ship it to the headquarters and then have to deal with freight forwarding it to your next location? All of those things, we've been a VAR for 40 plus years, and just drop shipping stuff to the right location and making sure the POs are correct and they match and all that. I mean, there's a lot of different nuances that go into that delivery. So delivering a quick win is kind of taking that complexity, and you don't get rid of the complexity. We still got to help execute on it, but you're bringing in someone who, I mean, it's like you're going to represent yourself in court, or are you going to work with a lawyer who does 20 of these cases, a year? Who do you want on your team to help simplify that? I think more and more organizations are moving towards, hey, someone come in here and help me execute.
And it sounds like a lot of it is logistics, like literally figuring out when to implement, where to move it, and how to structure it.
How to get there, and then how to support it, how to deploy it, how to onboard your people, how to train your locations, how to get your people up to speed with the new latest and greatest. It's these projects are they're a huge shift for some of these organizations. And I mean, a lot of, depending on who you talk to, 60 to 80% of IT projects fail to meet their initial stated objectives. I mean, that's a huge miss. And that's a huge opportunity for organizations that can deliver.
Great insight. That's really helpful. Up next from channelfutures.com, DaaS, the key to improved operations for MSPs. Outsourcing mobile device management allows MSPs to scale while focusing on core IT service management. Now, you might be wondering, like me, what is DaaS? Another as a service? Yes, this is device as a service. So Adam, before we even get into the article, and maybe I'm alone, Adam, what is a device as a service? Because I'm a little confused on this one.
Yeah, so device, and I gotta be honest, I did a double take on this too, because back in the day, 2013, 10 years ago, DaaS had, and I always pronounce it DaaS, had a very, very different meaning. It was desktop as a service. It was VDI. It was, we're going to provide remote workstations, and that's kind of table stakes now. That was a big push back 2013 to 2018 kind of timeframe. Everyone was going Horizon View VDI, Citrix, Amazon, AWS, Workspace ONE, all that good stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
But this one, what we're talking about here is device as a service, where you provide the endpoints and the assets as a service for the end user. So think like laptops, desktops, screens, the whole kind of device as a service package.
So they would be providing those devices to the user?
Yeah, so we just, one of the reasons this caught my eye is because we've had a couple opportunities in the last quarter that have come in, significant opportunities where organizations come to us and say, hey, we're looking to have you, it can usually start as like a mobile device management or an asset management or an end user support kind of question, right? Those are usually some of the triggers that start you down this device as a service concept. And let me back up a minute. We kind of take it for granted because we have a model called QuestFlex where we help deliver technology, regardless of what it is. Could be a platform, could be a firewall, could be a data center infrastructure, could be video surveillance. We deliver all those things as a managed service all the time. But device as a service specifically typically represents supporting the end user assets that the end user, the actual consumer of the technology, is leveraging every day as a service. The HP laptop that's sitting here on my desk right now, the screen that I'm typing on, the video camera, a lot of DaaS devices as service providers will bundle those profiles, call them customer profiles, together. And that's a monthly charge to the company that you're providing it for. So a customer might come to us and say, hey, I got 600 insurance agents, insurance sales agents all over the country. They broker insurance. They're calling people. We have 10 to 20 people turning over every month, high churn business, and we're growing fast, right? We're thinking we're going to add 100, 200 users every quarter. managing the assets for those people, because, and here's another thing that's kind of sparked this up too, work from home, right? So it used to be everyone would come to the office, you get your issued laptop, you get your little cubicle, and you get your little standard operating environment, and you go for it. They're leveraging third parties organizations are leveraging third parties to help package, manage, asset tag, and ship that old standard bundle that you get when you walked into the office to your home, right? But that also includes things like, hey, who's managing that device when it's at the person's house? If that person decides to leave the organization, how is that asset being recovered? How are you tracking who has what?
Mm-hmm.
We get pulled into organizations all the time. And I mean, if you put garbage data into a system, you're going to get garbage data out. And a lot of organizations don't really know where their assets are. They know Sally over there is logging in and she's updating her Salesforce notes every 2 weeks, but I'm not quite sure exactly what model she's on, not quite sure what device she has, when has it been patched, when has it not been patched. There's a huge disparity of like knowledge of what's touching the network, and device as a service helps kind of standardize that, because you're outsourcing that responsibility for knowing who has what. Because now, me as a device as a service provider, that's my money going out the door. I'm buying that laptop. I'm buying that endpoint. I'm drop shipping it to your end user. I want to make sure that that's asset tagged. I have good visibility. Who has it? Is it patched? Is it updated? Is it responding when, how is it out there in the wild? It's a transfer of responsibility, but it's a huge opportunity to help standardize things.
Do you remember those moments in high school when you would have that aha clarity? Suddenly you would understand an acute versus an obtuse angle and what it means in math?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm having that moment now. Okay, device as a service, I'm more clearly understanding. So this article is suggesting outsource this DaaS to other organizations.
We joke about it all the time. Everyone talks their own book all the time, right? So the gentleman who wrote this article
He's
looks
clearly
like
talking his own book.
he's talking his own book, but it's a great book. It's a great story. So I liked it. He's advising MSPs, who sometimes people think of MSPs are, you got one network operations center and you got a bunch of people sitting in there with big screens and they're watching stuff remotely and they're managing stuff remotely. And Jack Bauer's calling back to the nerdy girl in 24 and she's the MSP person and they're coding the books and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
What he's advising is, hey, for you as an MSP person, you should outsource this logistics management to a specified DaaS organization, right?
And he makes a compelling argument.
He does, and that's where we see these silos of different service offerings, right? Like, well, I'm an MSP and I monitor these systems and that's what I do. And I need to, and what he's arguing is saying that, hey, you should really partner up with the DaaS provider, because the DaaS provider can make your life easier by standardizing all the stuff you're responsible for watching. If you have 1,000 end users that you're responsible for watching, is it easier for you as an MSP to understand that of those 1,000 users, there's really 5 profiles you have to worry about? You either have this type of HP, you have this type of Lenovo, you have this type of desktop or laptop or system or operating system. You have limited profiles to worry about, as opposed to the whole bring your own device kind of concept, where it could be when you're troubleshooting or you're helping someone through something. It helps a lot to understand what types of assets they have in front of them. What do they have in front of them when you're helping them remotely?
This article essentially says, hey, MSPs, if you want to keep your sanity, partner with a DaaS.
I'm not sure any MSP ever expects to keep their sanity, but it will help keep the prescriptions down.
MSP, if you dream of keeping your sanity, maybe partner with a DaaS.
Yeah, it's advising you do that. So like, and that could really work well for MSPs. We, our company, we're a bit of an odd duck. We kind of play in a lot of different areas and we help kind of bring those complex solutions together all the time. So we do see the value in this, and we deliver desktops and assets as a service to end users all the time. We do it. We don't see it as an end user only device as a service. We see the value in delivering these types of services kind of across the IT spectrum to end users and to consumers of IT. But what I love about what he's saying here is that the arguments as to why it works are spot on. It helps with standardization. It helps with supporting your MSP support team, understanding what the end user is dealing with. It also helps with just managing and monitoring and supporting and understanding when people come in and leave and what's patched and what's not. It really helps kind of standardize the landscape.
The simplest thing of like patching and firmware updates, it's a benefit to that.
Yeah, and some people might be scratching their head like, well, Adam, why are you guys talking about a DaaS provider messaging why an MSP should work with a desktop as a service or a device as a service provider? And I think that comes a lot to how Quest is and how we're been successful. And sometimes people will get the message mixed up. I'm working on clarifying this with our partners, and I think with a lot of our customers. Sometimes we miss this opportunity. The reason that Quest is successful is not necessarily, and why we help our customers and why we help our partners is not necessarily because we pick device as a service or we pick wireless as a service or managed firewall services or data center or any of these things. Think of those all as like the end state, what customers are asking for help with. Where we do really well, and why I love this article is there's an old saying, if you know the way, you see it in all things. What this guy's mentioning in this article is kind of the way, right? And I see it here because it's talking about why you do something, not all the beans and bullets of how. Quest has built a model around helping organizations get to their desired end state, leveraging technology. We don't necessarily, and this might be blasphemous for some people in the MSP or in the IT world, we don't necessarily worry too much about the underlying assets or the scalability of certain verticals or the scalability of certain offerings. It's like, hey, this customer's asking for help delivering wireless as a service, or this customer's asking for help bundling in a bunch of complex things to get their end users a consistent experience. We have the building blocks, and we've created an organization that can take those complex things and simplify it at the end user. That's where it gets exciting. And I think sometimes we get pulled down to these different descriptions, these different verticals, and these different specializations. You can kind of miss the whole point. The whole point is we're here to help customers, and we have a ton of different building blocks to get there. And one of the reasons I love this article because it expressed the why you would do something. And I think that's really powerful when MSPs or solution providers or system integrators, you understand the end state, and then you kind of manage on the back end, putting all that complex logistics and delivery and management and personnel and labor and delivery all together, and then simplifying it. That's the biggest piece of it, because we'll get called all the time like, hey, what do you do for this? What do you do for this? What do you do for SD-WAN? What do you do for security? What do you do for SIM? What do you do for endpoint protection? Those are all end states. Those are all things that customers need help with at the end of the day. But where we try to differentiate, and I think where we've been able to mold with customers and kind of roll with the market, is that underlying really just confidence that regardless of what the end state's being requested, we can help put together a solution on the back end if the person's willing to work with us. And that's why I love this article, because it really describes like, hey, if your customers are willing to work with you and they want your help, here's a way you can improve both of your lives. And I think that messaging is important, as opposed to, hey, this widget's better and you should go sell this widget because it's better. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and to me, it feels like this article ties in really well with the APAC one, where it's like, know your end state and then help deliver that end state by putting all the pieces together and the logistics and everything. So I feel like the articles go really nicely together.
Yeah, I'm always drawn to authors and people who take a problem and describe a couple different ways you could address it. That's always fun for me. You can kind of sniff out the marketing articles pretty quick when they're pushing you down a specific road to buy a specific product, which I get it. You got to do that. But these are, I think these types of articles that talk about the why and a little bit about the how are important.
Yeah, great finds. And Adam, before we wrap up this episode, I need to share a bit of information with you. I don't know if you're aware of this. I did send you the link, but you didn't respond with like, thanks, Paul. What a great bit of insight. Wow, thanks for sharing that. Thanks for taking time out of your day, Paul, for sharing that.
I sense some bitterness.
Have you seen Muscles and Mayhem on Netflix? It is a great little mini documentary about American gladiators. And if you're looking for a little nostalgia, a little shot of nostalgia,
I did see that, and I haven't watched it yet, but I did take you up on your last recommendation on extraction for checking your brain at the door and watching a bunch of people get smoked. And I was watching the first one because I've never seen the first one. I know you were saying Extraction 2 at Netflix is fantastic, but I'm watching the first one, and man, that is some brutal shooting going on there. I threw it on the treadmill the other day, and heart rate spiked a couple of times, and they're running through I think they're like in India or something like that. Yeah, it's a good one. That's a good one to watch for sure. Not for the kiddos. Do not watch that with the kiddos around.
Not for the kiddos. Also, I'd say Muscles and Mayhem, not really for the kiddos, but if you grew up in the 80s and 90s, you'll enjoy it.
American Gladiator was a great show. That was awesome.
It was great. Yeah. Aside from Extraction, anything you're watching? Any recommendations?
I've been spending a little bit of time watching the new Witcher series, which is good if you're a nerd like me and you like a little bit of a Blade and a Lord of the Rings combination. Go with that. It's a good one.
Okay, great. I know what I'm going to check out this week. Adam, thanks again for joining us. Thanks for all the insight, and everybody listening, thank you for joining us, and we will see you next week.
Thanks, Paul. Have a good week, everybody.
Thanks so much for listening. The Incident Report is brought to you by Quest Technology Management. With over 40 years of experience, Quest is a leading technology integrator working seamlessly with your staff and systems to achieve your IT goals. Learn more about everything they do at questsys.com. And if you have questions or suggestions for the podcast, you can always email Adam and myself at theincidentreport@questsys.com. We hope you have a great week, and we'll see you next time.